One of the most anticipated games of 2024 has got to be Dragon Dogma 2. But you're here because you want to know if it's actually living up to the hype, or maybe you should just skip and wait for a price drop. Today we're going to talk about everything I could possibly tell you spoiler free about the game, and if you should get hyped or if you should just be like, man, I'm moving on to the next game. Let's see what's coming up. So let's dive right into it, guys. So Dragon Dogma 2 is one of the games that is going to change the way you play games. The reason I'm saying this, guys, is because when I first heard them say a couple things before I actually got a chance to play a game, these were the comments that I heard. I heard, you won't feel like the world is empty. Everywhere you go, there's going to be something to do. And I was a little bit skeptical, okay? I was a little bit skeptical. The other thing they said is that you are not going to feel like you're playing by yourself, that the pawn system has been, made different this time around from the previous one, that it's going to feel like you're actually playing with another person. And boy, do I got to tell you, these are the two things I was really skeptical about. But now that I've got a chance to play the game, now that I've spent a couple hours into the game, I got to tell you, they nailed it. Oh my goodness, guys. Let's talk about the gameplay. So the gameplay in this game is amazing, okay? Every single place that you go, every single nick and cranny, not only is there enemies, there's NPCs, but there's loot. Loot. And in addition to that, there's secret passages and secret areas that you need to find and explore. And the exploration factor on this game makes it amazing. This was something I was really kind of, hesitant to see how they were going to do this. But I'm going to tell you one thing right now. They actually nailed this. And if it's any other RPG coming out, copy the formula. Because usually what tends to happen with RPGs is when you go to the vast world, the world is beautiful, it's amazing, but there's so many empty patches. In this one, every single place has its purpose, has its meaning, has action, monsters, and it's just like you don't feel like you're just randomly walking and there's nothing else to do. In this one, there's always something to do, something to collect, and something to look forward to. Now, one interesting thing about this game, and this is one thing that I was also like, I don't know how this is going to work out, is the fast traveling system. As you guys know, mostly RPG games have a nice fast traveling system where you can fast travel to different places. This one doesn't have a fast traveling system like other RPGs. You actually have to get a specific item to be able to fast travel, and there's not that many fast travel points along the way, making you walk and walk and walk. And I was like, man, that's going to be boring. But no, guys, I got to tell you, walking feels like a joy. Like I said earlier, there's always something to do. And this is where the fast travel system comes into play, because you really have to make a conscious decision and say, do I really want to fast travel and leave this area? Or is there still stuff to explore? And that's what's beautiful about this world, is that you are always constantly wanting to be engaged with the world around you. Now, additionally, you'll be able to unlock campsites around the world, which will allow you to rest and heal up. And let me tell you guys, this is extremely important. Resting and healing are going to be one of your number one priorities when it comes to this game, because the way this game works, it balances off health and it balances off stamina in a perfect synergy. What this means is the fact that if for some reason, let's say you're in an intense battle and you're fighting and you get hit, you're going to come back alive, not with a full bar of health, but with a portion deducted from that death. Let's say you go back and engage a monster and you die again, another portion of that health is going to get reduced until you basically become a one-shot kill. Now, that's why it's extremely important that you make conscious decisions on where you set these campsites to be able to get your health back in case this happens to you, so you don't constantly die over and over. Because if your campsite's all the way to Timbuktu and you're over here and you die, it's like, how do I get my health back? So it's extremely important that you pay close attention to where you're setting your campsites, because once again, resting and healing up and managing your stamina and your health is a critical part of the game. Now, one thing I want to talk about that I feel like makes the world very livid is when you're moving around the world, you're going to encounter emergent events, which will challenge you and challenge your pawn setup, because having the perfect pawns for these emerging events is going to be crucial to the way you not only survive, but adapt to the changing circumstances that are happening along the world. And this is extremely crucial because you're also going to have to manage when these events are occurring and at what time they're occurring, because the game does have a day and night cycle, which will not only affect you as a player, but will also affect the environment around you, making the enemies behave differently, have a different spawn rate, and have different, affinity effects and strength when you're facing these enemies. So one of the most important things in the game that I personally feel like is definitely making sure you know where to set your campsite. But we'll have videos going over what are the best things to do in the game, so make sure you guys keep it locked for that. Now, one thing I feel like the game does perfectly well, and I wish more RPGs replicate this formula, is the pawn system. The pawn system is one of the best things you could add to any RPG, because it not only does it make it fun, it makes it dynamic, and it makes it feel like you're never playing by yourself. One other thing that I gotta make sure you understand is you're gonna grow extremely attached to your pawn. And it's going to be extremely important because you're going to want to make sure your pawn is not dying, especially if you get a really good one. So you get a chance to create one, and then you pick up 2 additional ones. Now, the 2 additional ones, if they die in the game, they die forever. They disappear. They go to heaven. So you want to make sure you keep those alive. And if you go really attached to one of these, you're going to want to make sure you protect them at all costs. So definitely the pawn system is amazing. It never makes it feel like you're alone. It never makes it feel like you're playing a game solo, which you theoretically are, but you're always playing with a group of friends who are pawns. Even though they're not real life people, they act really good. I think they nailed the pawn system where it doesn't feel too AI. It actually feels like you're actually playing with someone, which is amazing. Now, in addition to that, the pawns do help out a lot. It's not like they're just there randomly. They help on healing you. They help on combating enemies. They help on finding items. And one of the most important things I love about this game is the exploration factor, because there's so much loot, unique weapons, unique armor, potions, gold, currency to upgrade your weapons, upgrade your armor. There's so much loot, guys. And the great thing about this is that there is enough space in the game to actually store all of this, which is awesome, because usually what tends to happen is you get so much loot and there's nowhere to store it. This game actually has where to store it. Now, one thing I love about the game is the fact that you're able to find other items for other characters. So for example, let's say you're playing as a fighter and you find some daggers for the tricksters, you find a bow and arrow for the archer. You're able to get these, and whenever you decide to change the vocation, you're going to be able to use these for that specific character, which I feel is amazing. Not only that, but your pawn will also be able to level up with you as you are leveling up. So it's just an amazing synergy between the pawn and between the your main character, the Arisen, which is going to make it that synergy perfect. Now, these are the topics that I really want to touch down, because I think these are the 2 main core elements that make the game so fun and so dynamic. I do want to talk a little bit about the quest systems, because I think they nailed the quest system as well. The game is super rewarding when it comes to completing quest lines and helping out NPCs. You're actually going to get some very valuable stuff when you do this. Now, one integral thing to note is that in order for you to progress throughout the game, you're going to need to complete a couple quests, and some of these quests are only doable once. So if you mess up and you don't do the quest line, you won't be able to get that item unless you replay the game. In addition to that, there are some NPCs that are going to give you quests that could eventually die if monsters invade that area. So you're going to want to make sure you have a way of actually reviving them, which I have a video for that, so you guys can check that out. And helping people around the world actually has meaning in this game, which sometimes when you're playing some certain RPGs, you help someone out and all they do is like, thank you. Now this one, actually, you do something, you get something in return. And I think this is kind of like the best formula when it comes to quest lines. You want to make sure people are getting rewarded when they're completing them. Now, I got to tell you, there are some quest lines that are a little bit more challenging than others, and some are going to have you scratching your head. And this is where the pawn system shines once again, because the pawn will be able to help you with some of these quest lines. For example, we were doing a quest line where we had to find some flowers, and these flowers were only glowing at nighttime. And, the game tells you have to find flowers, but the pawn was like, oh, those are the ones that glow in the night. And then you're like, okay, well, I have to wait for the night cycle to come through for me to be able to find these flowers. So that's a very easy example I could give you, but there's multiple examples without me spoiling it that are going to be crucial to you having a pawn that helps you out in these quest lines. Now, of course, we cannot leave a review off with one of the coolest aspects of the game, and that is being able to climb a monster, okay? Not that many games have that ability, but boy, when you do it for the first, if this is your first time playing Dragons Dogma 2, you're gonna feel like super amazing. But if it's your second time playing it around, you're still gonna feel amazing, because there's nothing like climbing on top of a monster and bashing him upside the head with whatever blunt weapon you have, or whatever character you have. I think they nailed the way the system works. It feels very fluid, and this leads me up to the way of the mechanics of the game and how it feels. The game feels very fluid, you don't have hiccups. It doesn't seem like you're struggling getting on top of this character. Of course, it's going to depend on your stamina and your health and how much weight you have on your character, because weight is a very valuable component to this game. You really have to think on how much weight you have, how much stealth, and how much health and how much stamina you have. But once you nail this down, you're going to have a ton of fun climbing these monsters and dealing a ton of damage. Now, the game has a lot of replayability, and that is one thing I feel that shines in this game. You're going to want to make sure you play the game with multiple locations. There's different play styles of way of approaching the game. If you want to be pushy, if you want to be laid back, I feel the game is well suited when it comes to everything. And one thing I feel that they also did perfectly well is the music, guys. You really feel engaged, involved in the game, that I believe they took a lot of time to make sure this actually played out perfectly. You're able to hear everything, the environment, but the music and the cinematics are just really awesome. I know I really haven't said anything negative about the game. The only thing I would say is you really need a pretty good a PC to handle the game. I did notice that on a different, not on my PC, but on my friend's PC, the game did kind of just had a little bit of a lag. I would probably maybe wait for an update for day one if there is one, so we could see how that plays out. But that's the only really bad thing I could mention about the game. Overall, I think they nailed everything they said that the game was going to be. They actually delivered to this, and they even did it a little bit further. So this is going to be my first ever this year. I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. This thing is a solid, like 100% game of the year material. And if you guys love stuff like Elden Ring, if you guys are love RPGs, you really have to get this game. It's just awesome, guys. I'm thinking you're going to really enjoy it. And let me know in the comment section down below if you guys are excited for Dragons Dogma 2 and who you're going to be playing as. Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you guys for watching our review, and I will see you guys on the next video.